Hello again, everyone. Your Jiu-Jitsu Uncle Dave here. Welcoming you to another episode of JitsChat. In this episode, I'll switch gears a little. I'm going to talk about an observation over the years on Jiu-Jitsu gyms, or gyms in general, to be honest. But just to be more specific, I want to talk about Jiu-Jitsu gyms that, at least in Singapore, I guess, but probably is applicable to most other cities as well, but there's a little bit more nuance when it comes to Singapore. The business aspect of how the gym is ran, not from a teaching and course or approach of instructions point of view. I think we kind of covered that in the eco versus traditional episode, but I'm looking at it purely from a business person and a marketer's lens. And there are three things that I feel that is a commonality on why a lot of gyms struggle to survive, especially beyond the 3 to 5 year mark. The challenge for BJJ is a little more pronounced because it's sitting at that weird space where it's not a mainstream activity or sport, but neither is it like so obscure that you can capture a really small targeted community that will not have any other alternative. Let me go straight to the three main things BJJ gyms might want to put more thought in, gym owners, sorry, and investors to put more thought in. And again, this is not a swipe on anyone in any gym. This is just an observation throughout the past 12 years or so being involved with jiu-jitsu and also seeing how some gyms work in other countries. This is more of a business discussion rather than a critique. So the first one is very, very common to almost all skill or service-based business. We focus too much on not the product or not defining the product, but selling a brand. What I mean by that is a lot of gyms like to be proud of their brand right from the get-go, regardless of whether the brand of the school is the name of the instructor or a lineage or a global team or whatever that might be. If you kind of think about it from a generic business sense, the smaller your business, the lesser impact a brand is until you get a relative mass market traction. If we are talking about major brands, let's say Coca-Cola or McDonald's or Starbucks or whatever, the product becomes less relevant and the brand is the differentiator because everybody knows what to expect with the product. Smaller niches, and especially products and services that are not established, at least in the eyes of the customer, not from the eyes of the provider. There is a very strong sense of self-elevation and how much our brand actually impacts the potential customer we're trying to attract. It might be useful if you're already trying to poach existing practitioners, but for building a solid base of customers for cash flow, most newcomers do not know anything about anything. You could pitch Shoyoroll to a newbie, they have no idea what that is. It wouldn't make any difference. They would probably have more confidence on a decathlon product than a Shoyoroll product if they have no idea what jiu-jitsu is. The same token for gyms, the name of the gym or the team or the name of the instructor doesn't really say much for the customer. So a lot of gyms focus too much on branding and trying to position themselves a certain way, but not addressing what the product really offers, which leads us to the next point of not being very clear as to who you are targeting. If you have done any sort of business plan and marketing plan at work or for any other product, especially physical product, one of the first things you will focus on is defining who your ideal targeted customer persona is, because that dictates how you communicate, how your brand is going to be positioned, as well as how you customize your product to serve that specific market better. Most BJJ gyms come in and sell BJJ to everyone. And you know what they say? If you trying to talk to everyone, you're talking to no one. And that holds very true when you don't have a marketing budget. If you don't have a significant endurance and pocket to market consistently and aggressively. If your gym is known for targeting a specific type of customers, or at least you have a program that is very specific on targeting this type of customer, are you customizing your marketing, your communication to talk at that customer's level, at their level of understanding? Because I see a lot of advertisements heading to the gym. There's a placard that I saw that was like offering yoga, Muay Thai, and BJJ and things like that. I'm like looking at it. If I'm a layman person who just happened to be curious about going for a gym, I would probably rank yoga as the most understandable one from a layman's point of view. Even though I have not done a single pose in my life, hypothetically, I know what yoga is. Muay Thai, at some level, you still attach it to Thailand, you kind of know what it is. They see 3 letters BJJ and they'll be like, what the heck is that, right? It's a fundamental struggle with a lot of gyms when gyms and owners and instructors assume that everybody knows what grappling is. Advertising grappling alone, or submission grappling, or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, no-gi grappling, whatever it might be, is 2-3 levels of jargon deep for practitioners already. That's why the cliche and the joke that people roll their eyes when they say, oh, you do UFC? Yeah, it seems funny for a practitioner, but for the layman, that makes a lot of sense because their best level of understanding of what grappling is, if they already attached it to martial arts, is UFC or MMA. That is the fact. And we, as BJJ specialists, make fun of that and don't address that from a business point of view. Because if you are trying to build up a gym, you're starting a gym, you need that customer base, right? And unless your only target is to take customers from other gyms and not build your own student base, you really have to focus on the white belts. You really have to go for those 0 to 1 experience, 0 experience in any martial arts to get them started. And BJJ is not as easily understood and not as well marketed than a lot of traditional martial arts or sports that have national level, international commercial level of success. Which brings me to the point that I've been saying a couple of times in this video so far. Business strategy. In Singapore, we have a tremendous amount of saturation of gyms, partially because of the limitation of space, meaning rent here is extremely high, probably at par, if not higher than London and New York or Hong Kong, I don't know, but it's very, very high. If you're gonna have a gym, I would say at the bare minimum to have a meaningful amount of floor space to work on, you need at least a 5-figure rent. 10 pairs of students to fit on a mat would be around 10K, right? And if you want to have a large gym with full facilities and multiple shower rooms and all that jazz, you would easily hit the 30K mark, 40K mark in terms of rent, especially if you want something closer to the city center. So it's not cheap. And it's probably less prevalent back in the early 2010s when I first started, was because it wasn't that popular yet. There's not a lot of options. There weren't a lot of instructors. Most of the instructors are probably still purple brown belts. And the only black belts available at that time were usually expats, import instructors from Brazil. So the market was very different back then. But nowadays, we're 10, 15 years after, we have a deluge of brown, black belts that are more than capable of teaching, both from international, but as well as the local scene, locally grown, excellent BJJ practitioners. Now we have an issue with oversaturation, but we see like in the city centers, there's like a lot. Like the density of BJJ gyms, there is just a lot. Like we literally have like in one street, there's like 4 within a span of 150 meters. It's kind of crazy if you think about it. There aren't that many practitioners here. At best, I don't know, like if you kind of look at from a logic perspective, at best let's say you have 1,000 active ones, including kids. How do you split that up among 30 gyms or so? I'm sorry, we're not talking about active. We're talking about like the whole cohort. So that splits up the market quite a bit. And then every new gym that pops up usually comes from a senior student or a student with money wanting to open a gym, pulling out a senior practitioner or a instructor from an existing gym to open another one. So the business model seems to be all about poaching. It seems to be all about moving one practitioner from one gym to another. It's good when it happens because it's a better product, it's a more convenient location, etc. Yeah, sure. But again, from a purely business point of view, this is not growing the market. The market is still practically the same. And as time goes by, the more experience practitioner pop up from these schools, the more competition is going to be, and the thinner the pool of beginners are going to join the gym. So linking to the previous point, I don't see a lot of gyms focusing on acquiring and maintaining white belt. There's this fascination, which is understandable because this is a significantly more competitive sport than traditional martial arts. There's an obsession of honing the best grapplers, building the competitors and featuring and highlighting guys who win medals and jacked up muscle people. But that's not the one that really pays the bills, unfortunately. Those are not the guys who will keep your lights on. These guys, they may, myself included, right? These guys may be dedicated to train in one place and continue paying memberships and stuff. But from a bell curve point of view, we are not the middle mass. The middle mass will always be white belts and kids, will always be the casuals. Knowing that those casuals probably will have like a 6-month churn rate in terms of how long they would stay, then you have to kind of build the business model accordingly. You have to focus on always be adding more white belts into your gym. You always have to focus on serving more of those people that will be the foundation. If you think about like a pyramid, they have to be your foundation to keep the lights on, not the competitive guys. The competitive guys will be there, but they'll come and go. They'll also be the guys who will get injured more. They'll also probably be the folks that will be more busy, entering a more busy phase in their lives, whether it's work or family matters or whatever that might be. As compared to those who are just starting, they have such a long runway to go before they'll get sick and tired of it. And if you build a business and a program that will keep them happy, interested, building up their skills in the right time and not rushing them to be competitive, not rushing them to improve quickly, you build a more sustainable business. While doing that, we transition to the next point is I see a lot of gyms spend a lot of time and money doing short-term tactical marketing, trying to get more customers for just the next 3 months or for just the next couple of months with promos and things like that. But it's very rare to see gyms treat memberships like any sales activity, wherein 80% of your work should be building a pipeline all the time. All the time. You have to keep on building that prospect list, going B2B, building one-to-many partnerships, talking to corporate HR or school administrators to give them a win-win partnership offer rather than targeting individual parents or individual practitioners. That scales things a lot farther for the same amount of effort, and you might make less money per person, but you make more from an overall revenue point of view. And even if you are targeting individual people, most of the BJJ gyms I see offer the same marketing spiel. Join us to learn submission grappling, to learn BJJ, blah, blah, blah. Nobody knows what that is. And everybody knows how intimidating grappling is in general for people who have never done the close contact, the sweat, the propensity to get hurt, whether it's factual or not. It's not something easy to understand and to overcome in terms of resistance. And a lot of gyms do not address the entry barriers that people face for joining jiu-jitsu. So I don't know why. Is it because just a general lack of exposure or skill in terms of the business aspect of the business? Because I honestly feel that if you're going to start any business and you are the technical provider, meaning the skill provider, or you're the one who's providing the actual service, you really should have somebody else handling the finance, the marketing part of things. Because you can't be everything unless you happen to be good at all of those things, which is relatively rare. If all you know is how to be good at jiu-jitsu, how to show techniques, teach, coach, and things like that, then you are a great employee. Understand that even if it's your own company, if you're working as a coach, as an instructor, you technically are an employee of that business. Who's going to be handling the finance, the business strategy, the marketing, execution, media campaigns, communications, and all that stuff? Those are highly specific skills that needs to be addressed. If you're lucky enough that you don't have a lot of overhead or you're not doing this for money, then you really need to either learn and accept that you are a white belt when it comes to the business aspect of owning a gym or running a gym, or hire somebody to do it. Because at the end of the day, this is an expensive endeavor unless you don't intend to pay anyone. I'm giving you the example of a $10,000 rent, which is again, it's not on the high side of things, actually pretty average, if not low, just to cover rent, assuming you are charging people $200 a month, which again is extremely low here in Singapore, because most gyms charge between 300 on a low median to as high as like 400. So let's just make the math a little easy. $10,000 rent, $200 membership fee per person. You need 50 frigging customers that will stay each and every month just to pay your rent. We haven't paid your salary as an instructor, assuming there's nobody else running the business. Haven't paid supplies for you to clean stuff. You haven't even paid anybody else. Let's assume that you're running this by yourself. You haven't paid your time to do marketing, to do cleaning, to do taxes, and all that stuff. Keep things as simple as possible. 50 customers constantly just to pay rent. Now let's assume that you need to make a living. And let's say at the low side, you want to make 5 grand a month gross. That brings your cost up to 1,500 bucks. 15,000 bucks a month. Again, this is just to survive. And have you addressed the inevitable annual rent increases, inflationary costs that will happen, not just from rent, but from utilities, from everything else, from taxes that you have to address every year. So you can see that a lot of the times the rate that gyms are charging barely cover the fees, barely cover your costs. So I don't want to go on further because those conversation topics already address the problem, and I think the solution is relatively clear. But whether or not it is easy to do is another topic altogether. So what do you think? If you are a gym owner, what is your toughest part about keeping the business alive? And if you are running a highly successful gym, you're making good money, especially you don't have to be in Singapore, but anywhere else. What is your secret sauce? Maybe the community can learn from you. So drop it in the comment below. I'm at the gym now, so I'll see you later. I'll talk to you again soon. Jiu-Jitsu Uncle out. Bye.